say? What could I say? There was nothing to do and there was no one to blame. I learned to watch myself fade. When I see you walk away, I pretend to feel some kind of pain. I was always a pretty good actor anyway. I don't feel tired, I don't feel shy. Ever gone a day without telling a lie? My conscience feels no weight. And every time I end up on the floor, it's always something I do that keeps a lock on the door. And there is no other way. It's the faces on the page that bring me back here every day to the place I was before, but I won't chase that feeling anymore. And every time I end up on the floor, it's always something I do that keeps a lock on the door. And there is no other way. If the faces on the page could bring me back here every day, then I would have something to say. But all my words have lost their sway. I don't wanna waste your time by spitting out another line, because you've heard it all before. So I won't chase that feeling anymore.
Nice. Well, hello everybody. I'm Ralph DeFlorio, and welcome to the April 2nd, 2016 edition of the new Revival Coffeehouse. I survived April Fool's Day okay, and I'm welcoming my guest, Mo Kenney. Welcome, Mo.
Thank you.
Before this interview, we're chatting a little bit about your guitar, and I think everybody seeing it maybe would like to hear what I heard. So if you could just tell us a little bit about your instrument, I think is really interesting.
Yeah, sure. So this is a 1930s Hensel parlor guitar, and the reason why it's called a Hensel is because the luthier who made it, his name was Arthur Hensel, and this is made in Canada, and I got it at the Folklore Centre in Halifax, Nova Scotia, where I'm from. And Tom, he's the luthier there. He gets in old guitars and old wood instruments, acoustic instruments all the time that he fixes up and makes sound really nice. So
yeah, that's cool. It's got those old instruments just have such a unique sound. I mean, it's like no two that are the same, it seems.
yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned you're from Nova Scotia, and maybe talk a little bit about how you got interested in music, how you began playing, and maybe more in a general way what the music scene is like in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, sure. I think there's always been a lot of music in Nova Scotia and in Halifax in particular. There's a really tight-knit kind of music community there, which makes it really nice to be a musician there, because there's this big sort of support system, you know. When I was growing up, I lived in the country, and there wasn't any place to take guitar lessons. I took piano lessons, but that didn't really interest me very much at the time. My uncle played acoustic guitar, and every time I'd go to visit him, I'd strum on his guitar, and I would beg my mom to put me in lessons. And then when we finally moved to the suburbs, she put me in guitar lessons, and that's sort of where that started. So I was 11 years old when I took my first lesson, and I just became completely obsessed. I've always really, really loved music a lot, but I think it all kind of came together when I took my first guitar lesson.
Now, did you start with an acoustic guitar, or did you,
Yeah, I started with, it was a little tiny, a really tiny Yamaha acoustic with a tiny neck so my little fingers could play it.
Right.
Yeah, and then I started on acoustic and played that for a couple of years and then moved on to electric.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned piano. Do you have other instruments that you play?
Yeah, I play a little bit of piano, not very well, and I play a little bit of drums and a little bit of bass, but I don't really play anything as well as I play guitar.
Yeah, it's your primary.
Yeah.
Now, the music that you were drawn to early on, would you call it regional music, or were you just listening to whatever was on, the internet or radio, or what really grabbed you initially? Like maybe name some of the artists or songs that you really got into.
My mom is really into classic rock, and that's what I listened to when I was a little kid with her.
Yeah.
And then when I was a teenager, I started watching a lot of movies, and a lot of the movies that I was watching had really good soundtracks. And so that kind of introduced me to a lot of the music that I was listening to as a teenager. And my friends, all my friends really liked music too, so they had really good taste in music, and we would sort of, swap artists that we really liked. But Elliott Smith is an artist that really kind of stands out for me as being like a big inspiration, and he was sort of the first artist I ever heard that really blew me away. Like his lyrics are really sort of they're really dark, a lot of them, which I like dark things. I've always been drawn to that, and they're sort of sometimes it's like you're listening to something you're not supposed to be listening to. It seems so like personal, but and I really like that. So. And I listened to this band from Iceland called Sigur Rós that really blew my mind. I was listening to a lot of like David Bowie, a lot of the Rolling Stones, Jimi Hendrix, the Shins, Radiohead, all kinds of different stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting. Now, I try to do my homework, so I'll read a little bit about somebody that I haven't met, and the thing that I read about you, and you can tell me if this is true or not, because on the internet, who knows, that I found really fascinating was when you were a kid, you got yourself into a little trouble, and you had some downtime, grounded or whatever you want to call it, and you used that time to start writing music. Is that true?
Yeah, I was a really bad teenager. I was really bad. I think I was like, I was doing that like rebelling thing that a lot of teenagers do. So I got grounded a lot, and the first time I got grounded for like an extended period of time, I had nothing to do. So that's when I started writing a lot. I've always written, like I've always kept a journal. And I used to like to write stories when I was a little kid, like in school and stuff. But I started writing sort of poetry, I guess you could call it. And then I was like, I should start writing songs if I'm doing this. So I started doing that, and I just fell in love with that process. I loved how that felt, creating music. And that sort of like got me through my teens, writing songs.
Well, thanks, Mom, for...
thanks for grounding me. I deserved it.
Yeah. And when did you start actually performing? Like, did you do that as an open mic type of beginning, and then work your way from there? Yeah,
I played guitar a lot in front of people, and I really liked doing that. I never thought that I would be a singer. Yeah. I always thought that I would play guitar with somebody, maybe write songs and somebody else would sing them. I never liked the idea of being the center of attention. That really freaked me out. But I started a band in high school, and I was writing the songs, and nobody else wanted to sing, so I started singing, and I was singing in front of them at rehearsals and stuff, and it took me a long time to get comfortable, but now I love it. Now I love singing.
Mm-hmm. I'm always interested in the process behind what gets presented. When you're on stage and you're performing a song, that's to be the actual presentation, but how you get to that point. And in your case, you're a songwriter, you're a singer, you're a guitar player, and other things. How do you Practice and write. Do you like say I'm going to focus on my guitar for a period, or I'm going to just work on my vocals or lyrics? How does that all happen?
Well, for singing, there's like warm-ups that I do, and they're just really annoying, really loud warm-ups that I do alone, away from people, so I don't annoy everybody.
Yeah.
And that's kind of all I do for my voice, you know. I don't really do much else. And as far as like practicing guitar, I just play guitar all the time just because I just have to. I love it so much. When I'm home, my guitar is always sitting out. Yeah. It's the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning. It's, you know, I do it all day. I'm always writing. Mm-hmm. I always keep a journal still, which I find is nice to sort of, you know, get things out and maybe spark another idea for a song. It just kind of like, I try not to force it, you know. I try to write all the time about whatever, but I don't really, if I don't feel like writing a song, then I'm not going to sit down and write a song, because whatever I write is not going to be good.
Yeah. Well, you put a lot of thought into it. I've listened to some of your CD, and I love the way you can go from almost like a solo acoustic and then bring in these layers of other instruments that really propel the song when it needs to be, and it's really very, very tasteful what you
Thanks.
do. Yeah, and maybe that's a way of asking also, tell us a little bit about what recordings you have and how people can get them if they're not here.
Yeah, so I have 2 CDs. I have I think the second one is going to be available in the States on April 29th, but the first one you can get on iTunes. And you'll be able to get the second one on iTunes after April 29th. And maplemusic.com, you can get physical copies mailed to you. Excellent. From that website. Yeah.
And do you have any other projects in the works, or is this like, once this is complete, you're going to tour and support and focus the...
Yeah, I get home in a couple days. I've been on the road for about a month now, and I'll have some time off, so I'm gonna be writing a lot, which is usually what I do when I'm home and I have some time anyway. I'm gonna start working on a 3rd record. I think probably by the end of the summer I'll be in the studio again.
That's great. On the road for a month, is that an easy thing or fun thing, or a little bit of all?
Yeah, a little bit of both. It has its ups and downs for sure, but I love what I do. So
yeah, so it must be nice when you're getting to that point where you know you're heading home.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's always nice for sure.
That's awesome. I'd like you to play another song.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Here, I'll play. This is the first song that I did. That was a tune from my first record, so I'll do one from my second record now.
I faked it. Now that I look back from the very first kiss, I knew it wouldn't last. Yeah, I faked it. From the song to the dance, opened up my eyes, I saw that chance and I took it. And I knew that you would hate me, shooting fish inside a barrel, taking candy from a baby. I faked it. When I left you, you were stumbling through the dark. I'm not sorry that it hurt when I took your heart apart, 'cause I liked it. And I remember how it felt when I fell in love with someone and they hit below the belt. So I hate you, and I knew that you would hate me, shooting fish inside a barrel. It's never been so easy. I faked it. I faked it. It was never you and me when I said it